Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon, blue moon in Taurus on Halloween, October 31st, 2020 at 9:49 a.m. Central Standard Time. So if you are on the East Coast, you're at an hour. On the, I was going to say the left coast or the West Coast, subtract 2 hours. And if you are in Europe, it's going to be in the afternoon for yous guys. And what about if you're down under? Will it be on Halloween still? 16 hours ahead? Yeah, I think so. I think you'll get under the nose. No, maybe it might be on November 1st, but same difference. Day of the Dead, you know. Still that same vibe going on. So, to me, it's a very special time. I've been looking forward to this for a while because I knew it was a blue moon. I knew that Uranus was in conjunction with the moon and the sun, of course, too. And so I felt this sense of with the sun, it's an opposition, I should say. I knew that there could be this wild card aspect to it. And yet I didn't really think about what I would actually feel until just yesterday, where it was like incredibly craptastic. And it was very reminiscent of I had a day that was very craptastic about a month ago, and that was, I think, leading up to the full moon in Aries. And in my particular chart, both of these full moons are happening in my 12th house, which is Pisces house. Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So it's a water house, very emotional, and it has its own influences. If you want to know how this will be affecting you personally, I have done the November astrology readings for each sign, and I do include that one, but it would be for the October, obviously. So, since October is almost through, you would have to kind of fast forward to the end to hear about that part, because I believe it's the last transit that I mention, since it's on the last day of the month. So I figure that since I have a very big 12th house, and both of these full moons are falling there, that is why I had similar reactions even a few days before, because you may find if you're listening to this on the 29th or the 30th, that you will start to see kind of erratic behavior just by itself at any full moon time. But at this particular full moon, because Uranus is in very close aspect, is in a conjunction with the moon and opposing the sun, there is this rebellious and eccentric energy that can also be quite unpredictable and can lead to maybe things happening that are very unexpected, or there could be, surprises of some sort. And at any full moon, we have this potential for something to come out into the open that has been, hidden. And, we are in Scorpio season. So the moon is in Taurus, the sun is in Scorpio. They're forming that opposition as they do at all full moons. But it kind of begs the question, what secrets will be revealed? So when we look at what Taurus represents and what Scorpio represents, we're talking about, with the emotional nature being in an earth sign, this sense of your financial well-being. And, I'm thinking in terms of other factors that are happening right now. And this could bring it to some kind of a crisis point, but when I say crisis, it sounds really bad, but it's really like you might have heard the term healing crisis, which is used in alternative types of health literature where they talk about this idea of, the symptoms that we think of as actual illnesses or diseases are actually the body's attempt to create homeostasis. I think that's how you pronounce it, or internal balance. And doing so by, like a fever, raising the temperature to burn toxins from the body, through sweating. And then sometimes we get chills, and that's to lower the temperature. That's how I figured it. I said, why do I can understand getting a fever, but why do we get chills? And then I thought to myself, maybe that's when you get too hot, your temperature gets too high, then you get chills. And it tries to create that balance, that in-between state. I'm just surmising here. I'm not a medical professional, but that's how I see it. But I'm just saying that there are different things, ridding excess mucus through runny noses and coughing and things like that. So the same thing applies to any kind of problems that you have in your life. If you have relationship issues, and a lot of times full moons can bring out something that has been sublimated, ignored, lied about to the surface. Now you might think, oh, I can't handle this. I have enough on my plate. But it's like kind of lancing the boil. Oh, that sounds gross. But yeah. And letting that pus just fly across the room. And, it's interesting to talk about pus because I think that Scorpio actually is connected to pus. Scorpio is a sign that is connected to the seedy underbelly of life. That's one of the themes. What's beneath the surface, what's kind of like teeming with bacteria, or kind of a festering wound, if you will. And so that's where I get the pus and all that stuff. But the point is that all of these things have a purpose. There's a purpose to pus. There's a purpose to mucus. These things are not just one-sided and bad, There's a purpose to E. coli, the things that we call bad bacteria. We have friendly bacteria and bad bacteria, but we have E. coli in our system for a reason. We have yeast or candida in our system for a reason. And so people think, oh, I got to get rid of candida. I got to get rid of these things. So we have these things and we look at them in a binary way. And the same applies to astrological transits. We say, okay, this is good, this is bad, and that is so simplistic. So being, the Scorpio is being able to be fearless no matter what in the face of whatever comes up. Luckily, the moon is in an earth sign, so that can at least create a little bit of groundedness. If it was the other way around, there might be more of this hysteria, emotional hysteria that develops because the full moon is, heightened, and it's and there's other things going on. We have a Mercury retrograde, of course. And actually, at the time of this, Mercury is set to go direct in a few days after this full moon. And when Mercury goes direct on November 3rd, the full moon will still have been in effect for, the most potent period of the full moon lasts up to, I think, 72 hours. I'm saying this in some scientific way, but, even before you might feel it. And so I've even read people say until the next new moon, which would be on November 16th or 15th, I think it is. So for what it's worth, you'll have to gauge your own feelings on that and your own experiences. But in America, we're having our presidential election on November 3rd, and Mercury goes direct on that date. And people have noted that, I don't know if this was the last time, I believe it was the last time we had a Mercury retrograde on election day, was in 2000, 20 years ago, when we did not decide that election for quite a while. And that was a time when I believe that it ushered in a new period for the United States in terms of certain sequence of events. But it was really weird to have that hanging in the balance. And I think the difference with this particular election is that it's going to go direct on election day. I don't know exactly what time. I haven't really looked at that. But the point is that it went retrograde in 2000 on election day, from what I recall. So that is more of a resolution for it to go direct. But by no means does that mean that everything is just settled. You know, there still can be quite a lot of instability, or even, let's see if we got any Neptunian influences. Yeah, I don't know, because I'm not doing the chart of the United States. I just wanted to bring that up in general, that is kind of swirling around. And even if you don't live in the United States, chances are you already know this. And, you know, for what it's worth, I think that the United States is a country that a lot of other countries are, you know, keep tabs on, because we are, you know, one of the countries that tends to have a lot of influence in the world, you know. But people have to understand that Americans are, you know, don't necessarily agree with everything that is done in our name, because I I read a lot of anti-American comments. I think things are changing around a bit, but just understand that you can't broad brush all Americans if you're not in this country, if you're from overseas. And this election can be very impactful on the whole planet. So this may create an underlying tension, or, you know, this suspense. And I think, like I said, the Uranian energy, I think Uranus may be connected to the nervous system. It definitely is connected to electricity. So you may feel kind of edgy. And I think that's kind of true of full moons in general, that there's a kind of an electric quality, or a certain, a fever pitch, the heightened emotions. And, you know, the moon is exalted in Taurus, so that is a saving grace. We also have, I wanted to mention that Mercury has gone into Libra, even though it's retrograde, so there's still, you know, there's more of a, what would you call it, a congenial or diplomatic speech pattern that is prevalent at this time. And, you know, a person who, if, you know, for instance, Scorpio, when Mercury retrograded in Scorpio, and that is very cutting, that can be very fierce and ruthless, and not necessarily warm and fuzzy and nice. Scorpio's ruled by Mars and Pluto, enough said, right? And especially when you talk about Mars, that kind of, just like with Aries, kind of stirring the pot, and, you know, being very aggressive, and things like that. So there's more diplomacy with Mercury in Libra, and that can be a saving grace. We have Venus in Libra. and Mars is in Aries. Okay, can we say, oof, I knew we could? No, I mean, I'm just saying because the sun is in Scorpio and one of its rulers is in its own sign. Mars is its own sign. So, hence, there is a square between Mars in Aries and Pluto in Capricorn. Let's see here. It's it's 6 degrees. I mean, it's not like tight, but it's close enough to be a square. Now, in these particular cases, this is something to really pay attention to. I don't tend to be a fear monger. I don't tell people to be afraid, be very, very afraid. But this is taking place on a Saturday, and from, I guess, most people, and even if you're in Aussie land or New Zealand or what have you, you might be at a Halloween party, and it could be after midnight when this is occurring, and it still is going to be a time when you're out and about. So if you are going to have Halloween celebrations, I know that some places are having a new shutdown, so that might limit that. And where I live, they've shut down the bars and the restaurants again to indoor dining and carousing, drinking in the bars. So it might be limited to house parties, but still. Being very cautious, careful about, the company that you're keeping. And if you are involved in a relationship and maybe it has had rocky times, this can be with the sun and moon in opposition in Scorpio and Taurus, and having these Libra placements as well, Mercury and Venus in Libra, and Mars in Aries. But Mars in Aries, it's more of the aggression and as well as the impetuous behavior, the rash actions that people are taking, which are not very wise. It's always wise to think before you act or to speak. But, luckily Mercury's in Libra, like I said. But in this particular case, there could be relationship issues, a go-go. And this can be true at any full moon with the opposition, but at this particular one, for sure, because both Scorpio and Taurus are associated with relationships in their own way, and then we have the Libra energy. So basically what this can mean is that people who have relationships where there's jealousy involved, and remember that jealousy isn't necessarily that either person is cheating. This can be emotional insecurity and immaturity that lends itself to a lot of, possessiveness and suspicion. So possessiveness with the Taurus energy, the emotional, and the sun in Scorpio, the suspiciousness. These are the kinds of things that happen a lot with people who are either immature, and that could be chronologically, they're just young, they haven't experienced relationships, and they just, are not really fully formed themselves. So they're kind of, it still is a form of insecurity though. They just don't know who they are. So they're looking to their relationships to really define them. Or, anybody, people of any age who haven't resolved some of their childhood trauma or what have you, and they are either afraid of their partner leaving, they just have a very strong fear about abandonment or about betrayal, and something could come up. And like I said, Uranus is the wild card. So whether it is an ex, because this is during Mercury retrograde, an ex could come up that one of the parties has not dealt with in a long time. And all of a sudden, this person is like, oh my God, this person just contacted me. And now this is the person I'm really in love with. And now what do I do? Because I only got involved in this relationship as a rebound. Well, that could create a lot of drama. And just, the sky is the limit when it comes to what could be going on. But, both of these signs, too, can be about money. These are both the money houses. The second house is Taurus and the eighth house is Scorpio. And the eighth house is shared resources and the second is earned, the money that you earn. So it's like, and also possessions. So if you're going through like a divorce, there could be like this real, like, I was going to say a childish or reptilian brained response of like, fear-based, scarcity-based thinking about money, where you just want to take the other person to the cleaners, maybe vengefulness with Scorpio, fear with Taurus, wanting that, hoarding instinct, wanting to possess things, even if you don't need them. And that can create some kind of a conflict between you and the other person about fighting over resources. Maybe it's a will. The eighth house can be about inheritances. And the thing is, it's like, are you going to be the higher manifestation of the Scorpio, the eagle that flies, it's soaring in the sky, or are you going to be the lower expression, which is the scorpion or I think there's some other creature, I don't know, but let's just say the scorpion. Which one are you going to be that stings people? Are you going to like take the classier route, the higher route? When we get into Scorpio season, the emotions are activated to the point of just like amped up and deepened. You can feel it if you're somebody who is very sensitive to energy. You can tell the difference of when the sun is in Gemini and when it's in Scorpio, because there's just like, sometimes there can be a feeling of heaviness or simply that more seriousness, more penetrative insight, whatever. But the bottom line is that there's always a higher expression of this and a lower expression. And because Uranus is impacting this very, totally directly, because it's an exact same degree with the sun and the moon. This can be a liberating force. As much as it can upset the apple cart, and it can kind of like shake things up, it can also have the effect of liberation and a sudden liberation. There's a term, I think it's in Zen Buddhism, called Satori, and it means like that. It's kind of like instant enlightenment. And it's really like an aha moment. That's how I would see it. Where you just, the light bulb goes on and you realize something and it frees you, and then you're done with that. You don't have to go back and ruminate over it. So let's say I'm using that example of the relationship again. If you realize that this is a toxic relationship, but you've been on and off again, or maybe you've just been fighting a lot and things like this, it could be like, this is it. I'm free. And you might even walk out, that night. You might be at a Halloween party and you walk out. Whatever. It just is like, it's so amazing when you make a decision that you've been agonizing over and you just do it and you don't think think about it again. You just know this is it. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we're not sure as we're taking action, but sometimes we can just break it off. And actually, I consult the Farmer's Almanac sometimes, and they mention how when the moon is in Aquarius, it can be a great time for breaking habits, bad habits, because you can just break it off and you don't have that residual effect. Because there's a certain like suddenness, but a certain, abrupt type of ending, when the moon is in Aquarius. Now, of course, the moon is not in Aquarius here, but it is in Taurus, and it is in the exact same degree as the moon. So they are at one with each other. And it's opposing the sun. So it's pushing back on the sun and making you realize in terms of your own sense of self. We talk about it as egoic, but it's not a bad thing. It's like, what did you come here to express? What did you come here to become? Become here. What did you come here to become? To be. And what is infringing on that? Impinging, is that a word? What is interfering with it? Is there something that is coming in between you and your ability to, manifest something, some identity? And maybe there is. Maybe your relationship is doing so, and you need to leave that relationship in order to become who you were meant to become. Maybe the relationship has gotten to stifling and controlling. Those, both the sun and the moon are in signs that are so associated with control. And, possessiveness is a form of being controlling. So other things that are going on, we have Mercury squaring off to Jupiter, which can create an inflated sense of, your perception becomes inflated over, you're overdoing it, maybe you're over talking. You may be, being very diplomatic, but they call it overclosing the deal. If you're selling something, you're talking too much, but it could be loose lips sink ships, especially at the time of a full moon. So you might inadvertently blab out something that you tell a secret to the wrong person. So watch out for that. Mercury is squaring off to Saturn. Beware of pessimism. The sun opposing Neptune and the moon in conjunction with it. Or is that, I'm sorry, that's Uranus. Oh, duh, I just told you about those, so I'm not going to talk about that. I was looking at the wrong row. Actually, there's a nice trine from the sun to Neptune. And that has to do with, your ability to even just like perceive yourself in terms of when we're talking about identity, in your spiritual self, as your spiritual self. So in other words, if you're having relationship issues, this may be a time when you realize that other person doesn't own me. The only person I really have to answer to is God. This person is not God. And so I don't have to obey this person on any level. I'm my own person. Let's see if the North Node is doing anything. There's a square between Neptune and the North Node. So as a collective, I think that, you have to look at your own angles to the North Node and, what house it's transiting for you. But as a collective, we should all be looking at how our soul's mission, whatever that is, at this particular moment in time, because it's going to vary. You have to look at your natal north node to find out what that mission is, but for the time being, as the north node is in Gemini right now, it's transiting through a certain area for you. And wherever this area is, this may be something to really honor in your life. And the opposite house to that, where the south node is transiting, is an area to kind of be more like kind of de-emphasize at this time. It doesn't mean that, oh, it's bad luck if you are doing Sagittarian things or whatever house this is in for you. But the point is that Gemini represents communication. It represents your voice. It represents knowledge. And for instance, if you are a writer, if you really see yourself as a writer, but you haven't written anything, then maybe, especially if it's transiting the 3rd house or the 9th house, then, when are you going to do it? This is the perfect time. But it's with the square to Neptune, you may feel a bit foggy. You may not be looking at it from the spiritual perspective, and that is creating, or maybe the spiritual is interfering with other aspects of what this North Node transit may mean to you, where there's some kind of imbalance. You know how they say, as above, so below, kind of something like that, where there has to be a balance between your material nature and desires and goals and your more spiritual ones. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great full moon, blue moon in Taurus. Take care. Bye.